All right, and welcome back to the OU Update Show. I'm your host, Dash. We'll be bringing Tag on here in just a few moments. But I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and watching the show. Make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. Let us know how we're doing on the show. We try to update as quick and as we possibly can. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Tag and I'll be talking about some OU football and things going on, and so I'll bring him on. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Saturday and enjoying the weather. Getting ready to have some horrible rain here if you're in Oklahoma. Monday, we're looking at flooding, so be prepared for a wild, wild weekend. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the OU Update Show. I'm your host, Dash. This is Tag, and we are here to talk tonight about OU football. Before we get to that, though, I want to do the question of the week. Last week we had the poll question of would you rather have OU Texas moved, keep it where it is? The overall consensus was to keep it at the fair during October. So we had a few that wanted to do home, and then the fair. So it was pretty cool. It was great to do that, to hear those answers. So this week, my question is, who is your all-time favorite OU player?
Oh man, that's easy. That was like a no-brainer. As soon as I saw your post, I was like, Roy Williams, man.
Roy Williams.
I love the intensity that Roy Williams played with. His ability. He was a ball man. My all-time favorite play is just the Superman play, is what they call it, during the Texas game. So, man, I loved his intensity. Hands down. And then I got lucky because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. So he went to Dallas and
with the Cowboys.
spent the majority of his career there. So, yeah, hands down, Roy Williams. Defensively, I mean, probably Baker Mayfield if we wanted to, split it up between offense and defense.
I've been around, as you can see, the gray in the beard. I shave my head so we don't see that gray, but I have been around a long time. I have seen quarterbacks from Kelly Phelps to Danny Bradley to, Troy Aikman, Jamel Holloway. I've seen all those quarterbacks. I've seen Sam Bradford. I've been on sidelines for Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. So, and then on defense, the Boz and Paul Migliazzo and like you said, Roy Williams. And for me, I'm going to go back a little bit, and it's probably going to date me. Again, like I said, you got the gray beard, but growing up, I was offense when I was playing football in high school, and I always loved the fullback position. And this is nobody's ever going to know, but Lydell Carr. And like I said, I'm talking mid '80s. Lydell Carr, fullback. You had Anthony, or man, I can't remember the other ones, but I loved Lydell Carr, and you had Anthony Stafford, I think, that was in the backfield with him. And for a while, I think he played with Jamel Holloway and them. And God, he was big. He was a big old dude. Kind of what we would use, like Flowers now and those players. That's what he would have probably been had they been running those offenses back in the day, not the wishbone. So Lydell Carr, I loved him. There was just so many great players. And I got to meet Joe Washington. I didn't get to see him play, but I got to meet him. Just some great, fantastic, and Billy Sims. So, there's a lot of people. I'm waiting. As this poll is still going on, we'll announce it next week. But like to hear from you guys. Who is your favorite player? Or you can name one, two. I don't care. Some of the best players. It could be a list as a mile long of the greatest players to come out of Oklahoma.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
That would take up multiple shows if we wanted to rank, OU players. Maybe that's something we'll have to look into for like maybe the summertime when we're in between, spring and fall ball.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have to do a show where we can get that done. So obviously we got a lot of, and I hate, first year coaches, and what I mean by that is this not their first year coaching, but this is their first year with their team as a head coach or whatnot. And And when I posted this the other day, it brought up some really good conversation between a couple of friends of ours and stuff like that. And I want to talk about that. Now, we know that we've got Brent Venables, LSU has Kelly now, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, obviously, Lincoln's out at USC. Of these, and these are the four that I want to talk about in particular. I know there's a lot more new coaches, but the reason I bring these up is because of some of the history that we've had with OU making bowl games and or the national championship playoff, and then obviously Notre Dame having, kind of this similar. I won't say they're the same as OU, but they've had some of the similar luck in bowl games that OU has had. And part of that is Kelly, and that's why I want to talk about him at LSU. And then part of that is obviously Lincoln, and I want to talk about him out at USC. So of these four coaches, Lincoln, Brent, Marcus Freeman, and Kelly, Brian Kelly out there at LSU, who has the most pressure to perform up to what perform to what expectations that these schools have set upon them? Who has more pressure?
In my opinion, 100% without a doubt is Lincoln Riley. I think the way that he left, everybody was bitter about just the entire situation with Lincoln Riley and him bouncing and going to USC. I think, and then taking, getting the players out of the transfer portal from OU, getting some of their recruiting players to flop or flip and go to USC. Man, I think it's got to be Lincoln Riley, hands down, 100%. I think if Lincoln Riley goes to USC and is a bust, I think that puts a big mark on his name. I mean, granted, he's still going to be able to get a job at other schools, but I think if he goes to USC and the way that he went about going to USC, I think he goes there and busts. That puts a big mark on his name. I mean, because he hadn't made it OU. No, they hadn't won a playoff game, but their defense had gotten better and had been getting better. We can sit here and talk about the 2021 season, but we've talked about that many a times and how we're not really sure, why it went the way it went. People want to speculate and say that he already knew he was leaving. He wasn't full game planning into we can sit here and go round and round all day long with stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he's got to have the most pressure. I think Kelly would have to be second on that list, in my opinion. And I think really, and before we threw in Lincoln, I was thinking of those other three, Freeman, Venables, and Kelly. And I thought it would have been Kelly out of those three. Right. And the reason, in my opinion, why is he's already been a head coach. He's not new at being a head coach. He's not new at being a head coach at a big name school. He's been in the position before. So I feel like he would have the most pressure to do good. Freeman, Venables, they're coming off of being coordinators their entire career, right? Well, I don't know about Freeman. I don't think Freeman's had a head coaching job anywhere.
Not that I'm aware of. This is his first one at Notre Dame.
Yeah,
as far as I'm aware of.
So for me, I think Freeman and Venables, yeah, they're at big name schools, but I think they have leeway to have bumps in the road because they're new to the head coaching game. They're great coordinators, but not every great coordinator makes a great head coach. So I think they've got that wiggle room to say, hey, they're new into the head coaching. Maybe they're good, maybe they're not. We don't know.
Right.
Whereas Kelly's been there, Lincoln's been there. They're not new to the game. They've got to have the most pressure. And I think within the first couple of years, if they're not successful within the first few years, we know at big schools like that, you don't last. Yeah. So to me, it's got to be those two are the top two. And then,
see, I would have never thought a head coach. Now, I know I'm getting ready to talk pros, but I never thought a head coach would get fired with 3 or 4 games remaining on their. So in this day and age, I'm not putting anything past. Now I'm not going out and saying Lincoln or Brent or Marcus or Kelly are all going to get fired in their first year. I don't think that at one iota. But again, like I said, I never thought a coach would be fired in their first year either. And, so yeah, I'm with you. I'm more leaning towards Kelly because of the tradition at LSU. I mean, OU has good tradition. Notre Dame has good tradition. But let's look in the last couple of years where LSU has won a national championship, and they're used to performing to a higher standard. And why I think, and here's why I put a little bit more on Kelly than I do Lincoln at this time. That this may change over the course of the summer and things as that goes. And that's why I brought up Notre Dame in specific because of Kelly and him not being able to win certain. Now that could be recruits going to Notre Dame. I mean, that could be the difference in, it could be a lot of things, but he has been known to get to the big bowl games, New Year's Six, playoff games, and just fizzle out. So that's why I think, at least for me at LSU, Kelly has the most pressure as far as that goes, because if, again, Coach O won a championship, and then here we are talking about Brian Kelly a couple years later.
Yep.
With Lincoln at USC, I think more eyes are on him just because of how all this went down a little bit more than I would say Kelly. Kelly kind of did the same thing in a way by leaving and going to LSU before the bowl game was over. But I think for OU fans, this is kind of the first time we've ever dealt, at least in my lifetime, this is kind of the first time we've ever dealt with some questionable, whether good or bad, whatever you think, questionable tactics of how he got over to USC. So I do think there's a lot more eyes on him. And I think if he has a rough year, the fans will let him know big time. I think the media will let him know big time. But, man, I just think because of the tradition in LSU, but we could be talking about a new – if Kelly does what history showed he's done at Notre Dame and the big games. Yeah, he's been great regular season, but you get to those certain bowl games and things like that, he hasn't been able to perform. Again, I don't know if that's because of recruiting. I mean, I wouldn't think that, Notre Dame's not low on the recruiting list. They're always high when we recruit. So I don't know. But I feel like, at least in my opinion this year, that's who has the more pressure. And you nailed it with somebody had said Brent. Somebody had said Brent had a lot more pressure than the other ones, and I just don't see that.
No, I don't see it. You can't bring somebody up. That's like a player getting drafted number one. He has all these expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
NFL's different than college ball. You could sit here and say, oh, he's an NFL-ready player. They're not necessarily quarterback. You say he's an NFL-ready player, and you give him a couple years, and it just doesn't pan out.
Right.
I mean, it's just he had the talent in college, and, for whatever reason, it just didn't transition to the NFL. And to me, that's when you're bringing up a coordinator, any coordinator, to bring him up to be a head coach, it's a completely different position. You're taking on a whole plethora of new roles. You're not just focused in on one area. You have to be focused in on every single area that it takes to be a college football program or a college sports program in general. From recruiting to preparing offensively, defensively, special teams. Yeah, you have coordinators, but you still have a hand in it. You're still the head coach. Your hand is in every single pot that has to do with that program.
Right.
And, some coordinators, they get brought up and they become great head coaches. And we've seen it time and time again. Coordinators get brought up, they last maybe a year or two, and they're back to being coordinators. And that's whether it be in the NFL or in college.
Right.
It's just, some people just aren't They just can't cut it as being a head coach. And to me, you can't have that kind of pressure on a dude that's never been in that position. Now, I think we have this same conversation in a year or two. It's different. You know what I mean? If Brent or Freeman in a year or two, they're not doing or holding up to what these programs expect them to hold up to, then we're having a different conversation.
Right.
They can't be on a hot seat, or they can't be they can't have the most expectations put on over people that have already been in the position.
Right.
So I can't agree with that. Not in my opinion. In my opinion, you can't expect a coordinator to come up and be like, boom, you got to win 12 games or you're out.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's just, yeah, that's what you want. That's what you would like. But I think that's unrealistic. You know, I'm an OU fan. I would love for Brent to come in and then boom, you know, have a 12-win season, win the Big 12, go to the playoffs, win our first playoff. Yeah, would be great. Do I expect it? You can't expect it.
Yeah.
I think it's unreasonable and unrealistic to expect it. We all want it. We're OU fans.
Right.
Any fan of any team, that's what they want. Duh. Like, don't get me wrong. That's what I would love. But I think it's unreasonable and unrealistic to say, hey, let's get a new coach that's never been in a head coaching position, and you better win 12 games. You better win the Big 12. You better win a national championship, or, you know, or else. It's just, you can't. That's
right.
Unrealistic.
And we talked about that. And again, I think most of the viewers who have watched us over the past few months know where we lie, or where we think that Brent Venables is going to do. And last week we gave where we think we'll finish. Yes, somebody had brought up somebody brought up Brent, and I was like, there's no way he has that pressure, because again, and I think you nailed it right on the head. He is coming from a coordinator spot to a head coach. Again, could he go out there? Absolutely. He could go out there with the players we have and win the Big 12, and like you said, win a playoff game and get the championship. And it would be great, and I would love that. And just like you said, my expectations is I just want him to succeed in his first year. I want, when Bob first came in, I think he was 8-4 his first, and then he lost the first bowl game against the
Ole Miss.
So, but I don't.
The Independence Bowl.
Yeah, Independence Bowl. Was I upset that he lost the bowl game? Absolutely, because I'm a fan. But he still succeeded where we had not been for the last couple of years.
And I was about to say, yeah, you're upset because you got beat in the game, but at the same time, listen, we made a bowl game.
Yeah.
Because prior to then, when was the last time we made a bowl game, right?
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't see. I'm not even worried about Brent right now. And then somebody had brought up that Notre Dame is always overrated, but they're mediocre. I don't like Notre Dame, and I'm going to be first one to say it. I'm not a fan of Notre Dame. I'm not going to use dislike or the H word, because I don't. But if they were on TV, I wouldn't root for them unless they're playing Bama. Maybe, maybe I won't root for them. But you can't put that on, because they do. My dad felt the same way as the guy who said that they were overrated, mediocre. My dad would say that Notre Dame could go 1-9 and still make a bowl game. And that was literally back in the day. That was because you were, most of the time then, it was playing on name and not,
right.
Yeah, Notre Dame had some not so great years in the early 80s, and they'd still make a bowl game. But I think, and this is a bold prediction right here, right now. This is a huge, bold prediction that I'm making, and I'll get yours here in a second. I think Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame, of the three coaches, Lincoln, Kelly, and Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman has the better year than the other two. Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame will have a better record and probably be in a better bowl game than LSU and USC. That is my bold prediction right here because of I think we're still going to see some transitioning there in head coach style at USC and at LSU. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think because of the relationship that the players already had with Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, I think they are better off of having the better record than LSU and USC.
Yeah. Man, I don't know if I agree or I disagree.
Tell me I'm stupid and slap me in the face.
No, I mean,
get it.
no, because one thing I do agree with, and you said, was he already has a relationship. He's a coordinator at Notre Dame that got bumped up to head coach. So I completely, 100% agree that, and the players loved the fact that he was the one that got promoted to be the head coach. So I agree with that. I agree 100%. He's already got the relationship built with the team, with the players. Probably most of the recruits that they ended up getting for this class and next year's class. So he definitely has that going. I do think that USC is going to go through some growing pains. The thing that Lincoln does have is he does have some players that transferred from OU to USC, i.e. Caleb Williams. Was it Mario Williams?
Yeah, Mario.
I get a wide receiver or whatever. So I think he's lucky there because he's got a couple players that have already gelled together, especially when you get a quarterback and a wide receiver that have already been working together for an entire year. So I think he's got that going. However, you're taking a new offensive scheme into a new place. OU was kind of already used to it. OU got lucky because he came in as a coordinator before he took over as head coaching. And they already kind of had like the high-flying, high-tempo offense going. Lincoln just kind of really added to it and spruced it up a lot, right? USC is not used to that. Yeah. USC is not used to the fast tempo like Lincoln runs. So unless he changes
didn't Leinart and them run a relatively fast pace? Him, Reggie Bush, when we were facing them.
I mean, they might have ran a quicker pace, but I don't know that USC has ran. And I could be wrong, but I don't remember them running a high tempo Lincoln Riley high tempo offense. You know, he's got one of the faster tempoed offenses in the nation. So there's a big difference between, going down and running 30 seconds off the clock and running 6 or 7 plays compared to running a minute and a half, 2 minutes off, running 6 or 7 plays. And I think that's what Lincoln brings. You know, you're going to get a lot of plays off. And the problem is and we talked about this in other shows, the problem with that is if you don't succeed, you just let your defense rest for maybe 30 seconds and hoping that you're going to get a TV timeout to kind of extend it to make that a little bit longer. And I don't want to get off, man. I'm going to get off on a tangent here for half a second.
But the defense, I mean, he's taking the same coordinator. I can't see much of his defense, the defense changing. I can't, and I'm not trying to bash. Again, I'm not bashing. I just don't see much of the transition or the defense changing even at USC. I just don't see. Yeah, they might put up more points, but I think they'll kind of be in the same boat that we were, where we're trying to. You still got to be able to stop teams, regardless. And I liked Alex Grinch. He improved our defense, but was our defense one of the top 15, 20? Not really. Yeah. But it was better than being 90 or 100 or over 100, like in triple-digit defenses. Like I honestly believe the year that we lost to Georgia, had we have been in the top 50 in defense, I feel like we could have beat Georgia and really competed.
but our defense was not great. But we, like I said, Alex Grinch has improved it a lot, but we still had holes that, like, we've talked about it before. He was speed D. That was his whole thing, speed D.
Yeah.
And we had tackling problems. We had physicality problems. I tell you what, I think it was Perion Winfrey talked about it, how Grinch didn't really alternate the defensive linemen the way they should. Like, you'd have all your good linemen out there one time, and then all your, I'm not going to say they're not good, but the backups basically,
right,
second,
third string,
rotating in, rather than having, mixing it up to where you're having a starter run with maybe a second string and a starter running with a second string, to where you always constantly have one of your first string top linemen. I want to say that was Perion Winfrey is the one who came out and said that. And I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. I never really paid that close attention to the defensive rotations. But yeah, I mean, Alex Grinch is a good defensive coordinator, but he's not a Brent Venables.
Yeah.
I say Brent Venables as a defensive coordinator, go look up his defenses. His defenses have been top 10, top 15 since 2008. He might have had like a handful of years that were kind of a little bit lower than that, but for the most part, top 10, top 15, consistently. Alex Grinch hasn't done that. He didn't do it at Ohio State. He came here, he improved our defense. He did what we needed him to do, which was get a better defense, which he did. But we still weren't a top defense. That's not going to change going out to USC. I don't think we didn't have a problem. We had players, but like you said, like Perion said, maybe it was just he wasn't rotating right, or he wasn't making adjustments correctly. It could be a plethora of things.
I don't think it's going to change with you. I just want cornerbacks and secondary that are 6 feet tall at least this year.
Yeah.
I kid. We've had some really good defensive players. You're right. We have.
Our linemen,
and again, I'm not bashing him at all. And Alex Grinch, like you said, he brought us back into, made him better. Did he make him the best? No, but I mean, only time will tell. So again, like I said, I still think Marcus Freeman has the better of the year. You think it'll be Lincoln Riley. At least I think we both agree that Kelly's, I mean, like you said, Kelly, if it's number one, when we were talking about the three, I think Kelly has the most pressure too as well. But
yeah,
before we get off here, and we'll have another show next week. And this is something that I thought of. If Gabriel has a 8-9 win game streak, is he in the run for the Heisman this year?
I mean, he could be. That's hard to tell. You could have 12. He could win 12 games.
Yeah.
But that's also going to be, okay, are we winning 12 games behind him and his arm and his ability to lead the team? Or are we doing it because our defense is better? Because defense is making stops and we're, it just depends. I think if he comes out, obviously if he can come out and he can average 250, 300 yards a game with a couple of touchdowns and keep the interceptions down, why would he not?
Yeah.
Again, so much comes into play when you talk about the Heisman, but between your quarterback rating, your touchdown to interception ratio, the yardage, the completion percentage, the accuracy, things like that. So there's a lot that comes into play. But I mean, I don't see why not. If he comes out and he has a year, like that's all he has to do. I mean, you're playing for the University of Oklahoma. You will be on TV every weekend. Like this is, you will have primetime games, probably more primetime games than what you had at UCF. So your time's gonna be to shine, and it's gonna be up to him. And again, his ability to lead the team. he's got to be out there leading the team. He can't be quiet in the huddle. He's got to, he's got to build this offense. And the coaches know that. I'm excited to see him in the spring game. So I think that's probably one of my biggest focuses will be during the spring game. It will really be what he can do.
Is it bad for me that I feel a lot more comfortable this season? And not that I was like feeling bad about last season when we first started. I believe in Spencer Rattler. I think some things probably didn't go the way he wanted. Obviously, maybe it was coaching. I don't know. Obviously, if you haven't seen some of the tweets and some of the press clippings, it's been talked that he wasn't coached well enough. It's possible, but I feel better going into this season this year than I did at this time last year. And I felt really comfortable last year.
Yeah, it was easy to feel comfortable, last year. But the way the season unfolded, and he can come out and he can say, because I know exactly the quote you're talking about. The quote you're talking about was him saying, I've learned more since the time I've been here at South Carolina than I did the entire time at Oklahoma. Yeah. But part of that makes me wonder, maybe that was on him too.
Oh, I agree.
You have to be coachable. So maybe when he was at OU, and we're not there, we don't know. But Absolutely. There's a lot of things that can go into that. But I think him saying that's kind of shady because you aren't saying those things when you were here. Like, why? If that was an issue, why was that not brought up?
Right.
Like, you got benched. You got benched twice. You got benched the first season you started.
Yeah.
Granted, it was only for a half, but you still got you. And it wasn't even a half. I think it was like maybe a quarter and a half or something like that. But I don't know. I agree with you. I feel confident, and I want to say, I read somebody else was talking, did an interview, one of the OU players, I think, that's maybe leaving, and he thinks he has already seen the change that Brent Venables has brought mentally.
Right.
He has already seen the change. And it might have been Perrion Winfrey. It might have been in the same article that I was reading. But he was saying that he went to one practice and then immediately could see the difference in the mentality of the entire team and what the new coaching staff has brought in. And that excites me. Like I said, I've seen video clips that the OU football Facebook will share. I've seen little snippets of video. It gets me pumped up, man. Just like the intensity that Venables brings. And I don't think it's just, I think he brings it and it just resonates with everybody.
Absolutely.
And I think everybody just kind of feels it. So I think, man, I'm with you. Like, I feel comfortable. And it's easy to say that, hindsight's 2020. We can Monday night quarterback all day long about how last year went. Nobody expected it. But now, seeing how the whole coaching thing happened, it really makes you think, okay, was this really just a last-minute deal? Was it something that, people have said that maybe the planning wasn't in every week because he was worried about other things? We don't know. We weren't there. But it makes you wonder because the season was definitely not what we expected. So seeing things now excites me more. I think I'm more excited about this year, even though with the unknown, because last year we were expected to do good. We still had a good year. Granted, we didn't win the Big 12. We still won a lot of games. We struggled.
Yeah, I think the media got us. I think the media hyped us up more.
That's what I like about this year. I'm excited about the change. I'm excited that Venables came back. I'm excited that we have that defensive-minded mentality back in OU football. And I'm excited because I love the fact that the media is counting us out.
Yeah.
Nobody, we're outside of the top 15 in any of the way too early preseason polls, and I am fine with it. Let us be the underdog in games. Let us be the team that nobody's talking about. That's fine. As long as OU football comes out and is OU football and we're winning games, at the end of the season, we'll be where we need to be.
Yep.
I would rather start in the back and come to the front than start in the front and end up in the back.
Yeah, I agree. I would rather just be unranked this year, or even 25th. But I would rather be unranked, go out there, play football, beat the teams that we need to beat, play to the ability of the teams that we play. Don't play down. Play the ability that you play every week, whether it's Texas or Kansas or Alabama or whoever it is. Play to that ability every game.
Yeah.
Your top ability. Play 100% every time.
Don't go into a game thinking, oh, I'm playing Kansas.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be on the top of your game. Yeah, I agree. Like, come out and play. OU football, 150% every week. That's it.
Yeah. And next week, we're going to be talking about something I saw, how a couple of people picked Cinderella teams to break the top 25 and crash. Kansas was one of those teams, and that's what we're going to be. Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about next week, because I want to get everybody else's opinion. Yes, Marcus, you are correct. I love being the underdog as well, and I'd rather be underdog all year long and whoop the crap out of people than be told that we're going to win the national championship on paper. I'd rather.
100%.
Yep. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming out this weekend. We had a great show. We'll be back next weekend, or you'll see it when it comes up. But I appreciate you guys. Remember, hit that like, subscribe button. Let us know how we're doing. Remember, also let us know who your favorite all-time OU player is. Again, if it's one, if it's two, if it's the whole team, I want to hear from you. Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you on the next video, and Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner, baby.